Okay, we're going to take a look at our Descartes quiz here. Do this rather quickly. And our first question is about skepticism. We remember skepticism in general is a rather negative assessment of our prospects for knowledge. So we can see C says that none of our beliefs satisfy the criteria for knowledge. That's basically the definition of skepticism right there. None of our beliefs count as knowledge. Moving on to question 2. When Descartes defines the I which he is now certain exists, he defends the bundle theory of the self. Looking at this, we think to ourselves, okay, Descartes does think that he can be certain that he exists and that there is some I, so that part's true. But does he go on to define that self as the bundle theory defines it? And he doesn't. The bundle theory is the opposing theory of the self, one which would question the Cartesian substantial ego self that he defends. So there's interesting philosophical issues there. David Hume and Buddha both defend the bundle theory, basically as a way of saying that there can be thoughts without thinkers. So if you think about Descartes' conception of the self, that would say, give a very different definition. Okay, so that's false. Question 3. Descartes concludes that his body can be no part of himself in meditation 2 because he knows that he exists, but does not yet know if there are any bodies in existence, thus he cannot be his body. If you think about it, that actually is a pretty logically sound argument. We might think it's preposterous to think that no bodies exist, but if we grant that, and we grant that I exist, we basically get that conclusion, that his body can be no part of himself, at least not essentially. Question 3, Descartes' philosophical project in the Meditations is to find a belief that is absolutely certain in order to provide a foundation for science. That last part, providing the foundation for science, he mentions very briefly in the first passage of Meditation 1, and we know, historically, that is really the purpose or reason that he was so infatuated with finding something absolutely certain. Okay, question 5. Which of the following is one of the philosophical methods Descartes uses in the Meditations? If he's using mysticism or voodoo in his own personal time, who knows what he's doing, but that's not what he's putting to use in the Meditations. Whatever we might think of his method, we might have thought the scientific method. That wouldn't be a bad mistake, but that certainly isn't what he's doing. I mean, he's not predicting any kind of observational consequences from hypothesis and then going out and seeing if the observations are confirmed. What he's really doing is providing a foundation for the employment of the scientific method and thus not using the scientific method itself. So we see here foundationalism is one of the philosophical methods he uses. He also uses the method of doubt as a method in Meditation 1 that just wasn't listed here, so just so you know, that's another method. Question 6. Which of the following is one of the philosophical methods Descartes uses? Oh, I'm sorry, I just did that one, my bad. Rather, how does Descartes define justification for a belief? Down at the bottom, we see a belief is justified only if it is absolutely certain. Descartes is pretty clear about that. says I'm only concerned with beliefs that are certain. That's my standard for justification, and yes, I'm setting the bar very high. So look at the top. There are some other reasonable definitions of justification. We might think that a belief is justified only if it's more likely to be true than false. That's what we would call a probabilistic conception of justification or fallibilist conception of justification. That's not Descartes, however. He doesn't believe that justification does not exist, nor does he believe that a belief is justified only if it is based on sense experience. Matter of fact, quite the opposite, it looks like. Until perhaps the very end of the Meditations, an empiricist says exactly that. That's an empiricist criteria of justification, and Descartes is no empiricist. He's what we call a rationalist. So it's that bottom one, only if it's certain. Number 7, Meditation 2. Which statement does Descartes find which cannot be doubted? We have here, I exist. May not be a mind blower, but there you got it. 8. What are the two substances that Descartes divides the universe into? Pretty clearly, minds and bodies. 9. Property dualism is the proposition that, we can see here, there's helpful prompts. Mental properties are mentioned in C and D. D says mental properties are identical to physical properties. That would be a form of monism if we're asserting that those two terms refer to one thing. Here in C, we see that mental properties are distinct from and cannot be reduced to physical properties. That would be property dualism. That's not Cartesian dualism. That's a more modern and most people think more plausible form of dualism, property dualism. A dualism of properties, not substances. Question 10, how does the dream argument establish the dubitability of our beliefs about the external world? The wording here might be somewhat confusing. It's somewhat meant to be. It's not literally meant to confuse you, but it's intended to require some close attention to the exact wording to get it. So if we look at C, that looks right. If we cannot know that we are not dreaming, then we cannot be certain that our beliefs about the external world are true. So there's kind of a missing statement there, which isn't a drawback in the argument, but if we are dreaming right now, then most of the things we believe right now would be false. If I can't be certain that that's not the case, then I can't be certain that the things I believe right now are true. Okay, so that is the Descartes quiz. Hope you like it.